Tonight, reaction to Trump 2.0 on the world stage. President Zelensky rejecting peace talks without Ukraine's input, while Hamas caves to a hostage ultimatum.
We're in tears and scared and thinking of their own relative.
Plus, defending the homeland.
You know, we protect other countries, but we don't protect ourselves.
The president's plan to protect America against next-generation missile technology. And a night to remember.
If your eyes are open enough, you can also see so many angels out there.
California wildfire victims find a reason to dance despite their pain. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Hamas backs down, averting a showdown with Israel. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup in Washington. Well, a fragile ceasefire holds for now. Hamas says it will free 3 more hostages on Saturday. The terror group had vowed to delay the next release indefinitely, accusing Israel of violating the fragile truce. In response, Israel said it would renew its offensive if the hostages did not come home. Tensions are still high or razor thin, with Jerusalem issuing the following warning.
If those 3 are not released, if Hamas does not return our hostages by Saturday noon, the ceasefire will end and the IDF will resume intense fighting until the final defeat of Hamas.
Mediators are working to keep this deal alive as more humanitarian aid pours into Gaza. Well, Meanwhile, prospects of peace in another war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky insists his country must have a seat at the table as American and Russian leaders prepare to discuss an end to 3 years of fighting.
The main thing is that everything does not go according to Putin's plan. He wants to do everything so that he has bilateral talks with the United States of America. We cannot accept it as an independent country, any agreement without us.
President Trump said at the White House today Ukraine will be a part of negotiations. Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio are set to meet with Zelensky tomorrow in Munich. Well, with that, let's bring in our senior international correspondent, George Thomas, who has reported extensively from Ukraine, including on the front lines of the war. George, welcome to you. So Russian state media apparently taking a victory lap, essentially saying that Zelensky has been sidelined in negotiations. So what does this mean for Ukraine? And where does this leave Ukrainians in terms of negotiating?
Yeah, it's incredible. 3 years ago this month, it was Biden who called Vladimir Putin a crazy SOB and accused him of being a killer. And 3 years later, on the anniversary, soon-to-be anniversary of the third war of Russia's invasion in Ukraine, we have the President of the United States, in essence, welcoming Vladimir Putin to the United States. The potential for Trump to go to Moscow. Looks like they're going to be meeting in Saudi Arabia, potentially. But look, listen, there's a lot of controversy over the last 24 hours with what Secretary of Defense Hegseth said in Munich, in essence talking about that Ukraine will not have any chance of getting accepted to NATO, that there would be no U.S. troops positioned in Ukraine, and third, the whole idea of going back to the 2014 borders of Ukraine are non-negotiable. I think there is some room for negotiation here in these 3 ideas. First of all, Hegseth didn't necessarily say that Ukraine cannot have NATO acceptance. The whole idea here is that the Trump administration wants an immediate ceasefire. And so to talk about these 3 points in the middle of trying to get an immediate ceasefire doesn't seem to be attainable. So that's why those 3 things were tabled for the moment. But as Zelensky has said in the last 24 hours, he wants a seat at the table. And apparently it seems that, at least from the White House, he will indeed have that seat at the table.
George, you mentioned the land borders from 2014. In a CBN News exclusive interview with President Zelensky last December, we asked him about ceding land taken by Russia. Here's what he had to say.
We can't legally recognize our occupied territories. We cannot legally admit them as Russian territories. We can't, by the constitution of Ukraine, by the law of Ukraine,
You can go to the
And
next question.
just internally, that would split Ukraine. That would split Ukrainian society. Our biggest weapon was unity among Ukrainians, and I think that this is still our strongest weapon, our people, our nation, and their unity.
So, George, he says legally Ukraine can't give up its land. I do want to ask, if that were to happen, where does that leave support from the rest of the EU and NATO that has been backing Ukraine for the last 3 years?
I think what's been very important coming out of the White House in the last 24 hours is that neither Hegseth, Secretary of Defense Hegseth, or the President has actually said that what Russia has taken control of, pretty much 20% of the country, is legal, that they basically recognize that this belongs to Russian territory, that this is in Russian control. They've not said that, which is good. I think the blowback to Trump's plan is going to hit Zelensky square in the face, because after 3 years and tens of thousands of Ukrainians who have sacrificed their life for their country, I don't think they're just going to, lie down and take this, at face value. There's going to be some pushback. Keep in mind, this is a country that single-handedly pushed back Russian forces 3 years ago. They're not going to give up so easily. And you're getting that same kind of, response from the EU and the NATO defense allies, who are basically saying we can't just leave Ukraine out to dry.
All right, George Thomas, few know the issue as well as you, senior international correspondent George Thomas. Thanks for being with us tonight. Well, you may be familiar with Israel's Iron Dome system. President Trump is prioritizing an American version, and that has the Pentagon scrambling to create a strategy to make it happen. CBN national security correspondent Caitlin Burke has the latest on those plans.
Under a new executive order from President Trump, the Pentagon now has less than 60 days to come up with an initial plan for defending the country against a wide range of missile attacks.
We protect other countries, but we don't protect ourselves. And when Ronald Reagan wanted to do it many years ago, luckily we didn't. We didn't have the technology then. It was a concept, but we didn't. And now we have phenomenal technology.
The order focuses on potential threats including ballistic, hypersonic, and advanced cruise missiles, plus other next-generation aerial attacks. Trump also specified the need for deploying new space-based sensors that would identify, track, and intercept missiles.
Given the advance that hypersonic missiles and sophisticated cruise missiles that Russia has aspirations of that can circumnavigate the globe, these are fundamentally objectives that are worthy of conceptual study and also deployment.
Deterrence is one of the primary goals of the American Iron Dome, a missile defense system that would make enemies question whether their first strike could hit its mark.
What we're seeing now is because of the proliferation of threats, and it's everything from a drone to an ICBM, you have both state actors who are armed with these things, to include Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, all of whom have threatened the United States in different ways, and then non-state actors, terrorist groups, drug cartels, who can also have some weapons that we need defenses for. So I think this is going to be quite a comprehensive system.
While costs would likely be one of the biggest roadblocks, several Republican lawmakers are already working on a funding package, and Victoria Coates, a former deputy national security advisor during Trump's first term, points out that freeing up money for projects like this is a big benefit of the work being done by Elon Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency.
We have to save money everywhere we can and put it towards what is vitally important. And so those will be, our social programs, Medicaid, Medicare, that kind of thing, but then also into our defenses.
The Missile Defense Agency hopes to complete an initial phase by December of 2026, and then at least 3 more phases would follow in 2-year intervals. This month, the Pentagon plans to assess current tech capability with industry leaders. President Trump calling for all the components of this defense shield to be American-made. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Thank you, Caitlin. Coming up, Trump 2.0 in overdrive. Why a close ally believes the 4-year break before his second term works in the president's favor. Next on Faith Nation. Welcome back. When a new president takes office, it's common to center our talk around the first 100 days. In Donald Trump's case, It's been a whirlwind since day one. CBN chief political analyst David Brody explains why the beginning of Trump's second term seems so much different from his first.
So help me God. Congratulations, Mr. President.
And with that, the flurry of activity began and has not slowed down. What a difference. In Trump's first term, he signed 33 executive orders during his first 100 days. Now, in less than a month, he signed 59 as of the beginning of this week. It'll go up from here. Corey Lewandowski served as Trump's 2016 campaign manager.
And the luxury of a second term is you don't have to run for re-election. You can just go in, all in with your ideas.
The president also has more momentum this time around. In 2016, his victory came as a bit of a shock. By winning the popular vote in 2024, he now has more of a mandate. 8 years ago, only 49% approved of his inaugural address. This time, that jumped to 62%. He also has a more supportive GOP in Congress that is wary of crossing him. Case in point, certain cabinet choices labeled controversial are making their way through the confirmation process. And then there's this difference. Those closest to him this time around are completely different.
The big difference, David, is surrounding himself with people who actually have the same philosophy this time, unlike in Trump 1.0, who look good but should never have been there.
So gone are establishment types like former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, Defense Secretary General James Mattis, and Chief of Staff John Kelly. Replacing them are loyalists, disruptors, and friends like very disciplined new Chief of Staff Susie Wiles. Joining her are like-minded cabinet members such as Attorney General Pam Bondi, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and Head of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, just to name a few. A much more organized operation planned over the last 4 years. Tony Kinnett is with the Daily Signal.
There's nothing that bothers him at this point. There's nothing that he's worried about as far as electability. He's not looking towards things that he thinks are going to be that hampered him in his first administration. He spent the last 2 years, I know, working through every single detailed plan with those that he was looking to bring into this next administration. 2 years, you can get a lot of planning done.
Candidly, David, if we would have had 8 years in a row, we wouldn't have been as successful as we're going to be with the 4-year break in between, because we had the chance to plot.
The biggest difference so far is the speed in delivering on campaign priorities, such as targeting the federal bureaucracy. In his first term, the executive order making it easier to fire certain federal employees didn't happen until just before the 2020 election. This time, however, that order came on day one, and it had a much broader scope. From deportations to tariffs to banning men and women's sports, he seems more results-oriented and faster. Some say this focus could be due to surviving an assassin's bullet. It has clearly affected his outlook.
I think it did. I also think the weight of the office is different when you've been in it and you've left and you've come back to it. What he is embarking on for the next 4 years will fundamentally, historically, and profoundly change this country forever.
That is certainly Trump's goal, and unless Congress or the courts get in his way, it could happen with lightning speed. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Thanks, David. Trump's second term is moving at breakneck speed with plenty on his agenda. For more, let's bring in CBN senior White House correspondent Kelly Wright, tracking the latest developments. Kelly, as you well know, it's been a busy day at the White House. A judge has blocked President Trump's gender-affirming executive order, and there have been several resignations at the Department of Justice, including at the Southern District of New York. But I want to talk to you specifically about actions he's taken on reciprocal tariffs. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, John, good to see you this evening. The first thing I should mention that over my shoulder, you're looking at a military honor guard. They're here to welcome Prime Minister of India, Modi, and of course, he's a guest of the president. They'll discuss tariffs and reciprocal trade, and the president making a point about that today as he spoke to members of the media inside the Oval Office at the Resolute desk as he was signing yet another executive order for that. The president putting out on Truth Social earlier that 3 great weeks of his presidency, perhaps the best ever, but today is the big one. Reciprocal tariffs, make America great again. Here's what the president told reporters inside the Oval Office as he signed that executive order about tariffs.
If you build here, you have no tariffs whatsoever. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think our country is going to be flooded with
jobs.
President Trump is racking up the wins. His latest nominees earning confirmation. Robert F. Kennedy now the latest at the Department of Health and Human Services after Tulsi Gabbard yesterday. Is there anything, Kelly, that can stop what appears to be the Trump train?
It does not appear at this point that there is anything that can stop him. Of course, he swore in RFK Jr. right after signing that executive order for the tariffs, and the president moving forward to state that RFK Jr. is a disruptor. He's someone who will help make America healthy again, particularly in dealing with obesity as well as nutritional aspects. RFK Jr. is now going to be the head of Health and Human Services, overseeing a $1.7 trillion budget.
So President Trump and Elon Musk are continuing to target wasteful spending through DOGE. Democrats, though, have been on the attack. What more are you learning about their protest efforts against Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency?
Well, I got to tell you, John, the Democrats are trying to find their way forward, trying to find their messaging. This president has put them off kilter, and a lot of them are acting publicly with profane language against the President of the United States, which is something that many Americans are looking at and saying, wait a minute, these are members of Congress and they're going to profanity rather than going to a place of reasonability to deal with this president in terms of getting more governance from the Democrat side as the Republican side and finding some bipartisanship in how to go forward, even with dealing with DOGE. DOGE is exposing, as Elon Musk and the president and White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt have stated, exposing waste, fraud, and corruption and wasteful spending. And as a result of that, we're dealing with a $36 trillion debt. Elon Musk has been given the task to go out and get a scalpel and cut some of that debt away.
Kelly, just a few seconds left, and I want to ask you about the president talking about his hopes to talk to both China and Russia about nuclear weapons. What did he say?
Very important, John. He talked about today his aspiration to actually sit down and talk with the president of China as well as the president of Russia to talk to them about building or actually stopping their nuclear buildup and getting to a place of denuclearization. And he asked reporters, how good would that be to have a world without nuclear armaments? It's quite an aspiration, John, but he is determined to have that meeting with President Xi of China and President Vladimir Putin of Russia.
Senior White House correspondent Kelly Wright looking a little more regal than usual with the honor guard right behind him. Kelly, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Up next, road to recovery. After unimaginable loss in California, a glimmer of hope. Stay tuned. Welcome back. California is on the long road to recovery, rebuilding thousands of homes and businesses destroyed by the massive wildfires. CBN's Operation Blessing is providing help and reminding survivors they're not alone. CBN's Brody Carter reports.
Survivors of the LA fires are overdue for some laughter. For just a few hours, the weight of loss lifted, replaced with joy, music, and community. The Operation Blessing team hosted 2 fundraising dances with Bel Air Church over the weekend after being canceled due to the fires. On Friday, mothers and sons, and on Saturday, dads and daughters.
And you get told by balloon.
Thank you, Madeline.
Edward McGlasson, a father of 2, drove a long way just to be here after losing not only his home, but his community as well.
Opportunities like this to just go out and have some fun with people who care is really meaningful.
For others, like Mary Fish Harden, the night was bittersweet, a reminder of all they've lost.
I don't know the exact timeline of things, but eventually the church burned, our kids' school burned.
Her husband, Reverend Matt Harden, leads Pacific Palisades Presbyterian Church, now reduced to ashes.
There's a lot to be angry about, but if you're open, if your eyes are open enough, you can also see so many angels out there, and that has really surprised me.
God bless you.
And one of those angels is Operation Blessing, not only helping organize the dances, but raising crucial funds providing essential help to get families back on their feet, including meal kits, hygiene supplies, and generators.
All of the proceeds from these events are going to those impacted by the fires that have been so widespread here in Southern California. We want to bring some joy back to these families that have been impacted by such a difficult situation and let them know that they're not alone and that they're loved by God and by all of us at Operation Blessing.
For Jenny Martinez, a lifetime resident of Altadena, the loss was deeply personal. The wildfires didn't just destroy her house, they took her multi-generational family home.
And I just couldn't help but to start crying because I'm just like, it's gone, like everything's gone, all of my pictures. Everything you worked so hard for.
Even as she received help and prayer from Operation Blessing, Jenny immediately began volunteering, eager to help others facing similar devastation.
I came here as a recipient. You guys are helping me, I can give back.
Then an unexpected blessing. A local builder, moved by Jenny's story, personally offered to rebuild her home.
It is a blessing. It's a blessing to me and my family that you guys are putting forth that effort to help me. You don't know me.
For 46 years, Operation Blessing, founded by Pat Robertson, has helped families rise from the ashes. Now his grandson, Willis Robertson, a leader at Bel Air Church, never thought he'd rely on Operation Blessing as a lifeline.
It's just been amazing this month to be a part of it in this way and to help connect my own community, my church, my friends who have been impacted by the fires with what he started.
For CBN News, I'm Brody Carter.
Both the work and the family legacy continues. Well, coming up, a heroic act of public service next on Faith Nation. Finally tonight, heroism and quick thinking served as proof of 2 Michigan police officers' dedication to their community. The Trenton Police Department responded to a call about a dog that fell through the ice at a park along the Detroit River. The pair moved quickly to rescue the dog, struggling to keep its head above the ice. Without hesitation, Officer Michael Bedson stripped off his gear and waded through the icy water to fetch the dog. Corporal Seth Bond then took over from there, guiding it to the shore to be reunited with its owner. The police department commended their brave commitment to the safety of all residents, both human and animals, and what a courageous act indeed. Thank you so much for watching this edition of Faith Nation. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Good night.